Welcome to Contractors Corner. I'm Adrian Park, and with me today, some say that he dreams in code, but he doesn't talk about it for religious reasons, and that his iPhone lock screen is a picture of his iPhone lock screen. He's the founder of Contractor AI and J. Carter Roofing, the pipeline OG, John J. Carter.
All right.
All right. So we're going to just jump right in here. And so a lot of people are thinking about selling work right now, right? Especially in our part of the world here, Jay. It's I mean, it was a pretty crazy winter about 3 weeks ago, and that has changed. So
Right.
contractors are thinking, I got to get some work. So let's talk about that. And we're going to talk about sales a little bit. And last week, we shared some fails, and that was really popular. And so I thought, well, let's share some more.
Right.
So I have a particularly, what's the word I'm looking for, sucky fail of my own.
Okay.
That, well, I'll just get into it. So in 2017, I took over as a CEO of a mason restoration business, hoping to turn it around. And we lost on one job about 550, 575. That sucked. At the end of that year, I got another job I was going to bid, and it was this huge, it was a very big mid-rise, old apartment building. And I thought I had a relationship with this general contractor, and I found out later I did not. And so I bid the work. I came in at 3:30, and so I was talking to their estimator, again, who I thought I had a relationship with. And so he's like, they're, um, you're high, and so I lowered the price a little bit. I talked to the owner, lowered the price, did it again, and long story short, so they came in. They're like, well, the low bid is 240. And I was like, oh, buddy. So I'm like, well, I don't know if we can do that. So I called the owner, and I'm like, hey, here's the low bid. And he's like, who's the low bidder? I'm like, well, he didn't tell me. I think it's so and so. And I think I was right about that. It doesn't really matter. He's like, well, if they can do it for 240, so can we. I was like, are you sure? I said, yeah. I said, okay. I said, so you want me to, we should do this? He's like, yeah. I said, all right. So I signed the contract. And about a year later, they stuck us with another 50 grand in work that I had excluded, but didn't get that into the contract. So I had it in my quote, very detailed, but didn't get it into they didn't add it into the contract, which was a painful lesson. And then we lost another 30 or 40 grand. So we ended up paying 80 grand over. So we paid about 320 to do this $240,000 job, which sucks, but was even more painful. And I learned a bunch of lessons from that. The one, though, that I'm going to point out today, or the one thing that I think is relevant to this conversation, is that discounting is not a sales tactic.
No.
I mean, it is. It can be.
Anybody can give away work. Anybody can give it away. Right. Anybody.
It should not be a sales tactic because it is a very expensive way to do business.
Very. Yes.
And I found that out the hard way. That's just.
It's actually a race to the bottom.
It is
purely
right? Bottom, and it sucked. So I say that, tell on myself like that because, one, I made it a point to learn from my mistakes, and I also used my mistakes with my team, which I think helped, whatever creative environment of that kind of thing. But I think also it's something that it's so easy to do, and our business it is a price, even when you're even when you are what we became, which was the high priced option that people wanted to, they
Hmm.
wanted to work with us. You still fight that, right?
Right, and it's a knee jerk. It's
Yeah,
a knee jerk
it
reaction.
does.
It's
Right.
right. So two things that I believe we've discussed about this before in the past that I remember correctly. But your boss actually let it go, right? Like the owner of the company, the owner of was like, yeah, like you should take it at whatever, right?
Oh yeah, he was the one that was
Yeah.
like, if they can do it at 240, we can. And I was like, are you sure?
Right, right. So that there in itself is a leadership error, and I have to be very careful of this. Within my sales process, and I all too remember myself overriding sales reps and stuff like that, and really being a menace to my own success. Right. So,
Right.
um, the first thing is, with sales process, you got to understand that sales process only stands on top of structure. Okay.
Okay.
So when
Explain
you're
that.
yeah,
Break
absolutely.
it down
So
on that one.
a lot of people assume that a good salesperson is just this fast talking,
Yeah. Slick.
smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah, like and there is a component to that, but actually the best sales reps that I've ever encountered are very systematic. They
Okay.
work well within systemized environments.
Right.
They understand and appreciate a company that has a sales structure. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
the sales structures are things such as closing ratios,
Mhm.
past history, forecasts, things that allow us to make really good decisions. And you notice that a lot of it's data driven. Okay. So the first misconception out there is that and I run into this all the time, and I mean, some people may choose to disagree with me, but sales is very much a quantitative, not qualitative um, activity. Okay. And here's what I mean by that.
Okay.
So, yes, do you have to have quality, to be a quality salesperson? Do you have to be, smooth with words? It helps. Okay. But really, it comes down to a lot of things. First off, what I found is when you put someone within an environment, so let's take your example. All right.
Yeah.
You guys should have known through your numbers and through past projects right away that there was something wrong, right? So, but it's not there. But that's
We
a
made a
that's a
lot of
fit.
assumptions
Yeah,
about the business.
right. So there's a part of the sales failure, but again, not using our past mistakes
Right.
to like a mistake happens, but you have to learn from it and it has to get built into the system. So I have
Yeah.
a rule in my business. Listen, shit happens. We make mistakes. Everyone does. It's unavoidable. But the only time I get mad and the only time I take action is when a mistake gets repeated. All
Right.
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 So, and I embed that in my sales reps as well. I mean, again, I can, share a fumble of recent. Our sales team was selling a big project, and
Mhm.
somehow they forgot to price in the pitch, the steepness of the roof. So they priced this roof at a 412 pitch in the dead of winter. We're going to lose a fortune. So
This is
this problem, yeah,
ridiculous.
and again, here's where system and process can still have problems. So our quoting process is very systemized.
Mhm.
It's very difficult to miss an object, right? Like part of the problem was the steep slope. So what it was actually a miscommunication between the sales rep, and I know what it was. He was trying to give away the job. He's trying to get his sale on the job, right?
Right. Right.
All right, but in doing that, right, he circumvented the process, the system of which I've set up that allowed me to very quickly identify exactly what happened. And it was no more than a 10-minute conversation. It was you're accountable. At the end of the day, you're 100%. There will be no commission. There will be no nothing on this job,
Right. Right.
right? It's cut and dry. And on top of that, like, there's no excuses that you're going to use that are going to allow you to escape this, right? Now, what did
Right.
we learn? What are we not going to do again? And here's your warning, right? I will only do this once with you. If it occurs again, you won't be with us,
Yeah.
right? It's very simple as that. And we take it that seriously. But now let's take it to your situation. Again, how did it happen, right? Let's look at the sales process. So one, we're flying by the seam of our plants and we're making assumptions and guessing at things. That's part of it.
Right.
um Number two is you're being actually, an owner's job or a leader's job within the company is to ask the right questions of his leaders, right? So
Right.
did you do the budget? How much have you got on your budget cost? What jobs have we done? Not, yeah, let's just go ahead without that input, without asking questions. Even when I know the answers, I still ask the questions because I want them to think critically of the situation. So again,
Right.
an example of sales process. Another one, when we're holding salespeople accountable to an outcome, you have to measure,
Right.
right? So a big thing I see is they have, even owners don't hold themselves accountable. How many appointments did you take? How
Right.
many, closes do you have? Because guess what? All that relates back to, it could be a marketing issue the whole time and you had no idea. It could be 3 words in your ad that
Right.
is putting the wrong customers in front of you that you can't close, right?
Right.
Or a better example is this customer that you're attracting with your marketing could have been somebody that needed 3 months of nurturing before we put them to the sales rep, right?
Right.
Before they were actually ready to buy. But
Right.
instead, they get pushed through, and all of a sudden now you have a customer that's unhappy with the experience that you've provided. They're not any closer to being sold, and there's not a salesman in the world that's going to close them, right?
Right.
Or I'll use this as an example. Someone sees you coming, right? You've been preyed upon because
Right.
you're not doing those checks and balances. And like
Well,
I guarantee he knew his numbers enough to
yeah.
go, hey, these guys are way out. And
Yeah.
there's lots of predators, especially in the ICI sector. I know companies that literally look for the small subs that are trying to make a name for themselves.
Yeah.
And what do you think they're doing? That
Well, I
like,
found out that was
yeah,
them. Yeah.
that's right. Well, they
I was
exist in
like,
every.
yeah. Yeah.
They're known, right? They're, again, they are predators to subcontractors. They're not the guys that'll ever hire somebody of fair market value, right? And a lot of problems happen there too because in his mind now, again, he's paying up. He doesn't care what your costs are. He was always
Oh,
in it,
yeah.
to get it
Oh,
at the lowest possible price and get the best
yeah.
possible
I
quality.
mean that
And yeah,
that just let me just couple of other interesting notes on that. One,
mm,
I had to, of course, chase every fucking payment, like
imagine that.
everyone. And I remember the last payment I went in for, I I I nailed I nailed them down at the job site, and I was like, and whatever it was, 40, 60, 80,000. And I'm like, I'm going to your office right now to pick up the pit, which was another like hour and a half drive. It was insane. And I walked into the office, Jay, and I've never felt like, those scenes from those westerns when like the good guy walks into town, into like an old town, and it's like just a tumbleweed blows by and everybody's giving him the stink eye. That
Mm,
is literally what happened. Like, I was like, it was, and I wasn't prepared for it. Very weird experience. And then he actually ended up throwing me off the job, which went down like this. After because I would call him, I would get up in the morning, I would text him, and again, it was just one thing after another, and I should have known this, and I learned later. But I would text and say, "Hey, can we, because we got ahead of him on the job, so I was like, hey, are you guys at wherever they need to be? Because if you're not, I'll send my men over here, And of course, he lied every time, lied to me every time. Oh no, no, send your guys, send your guys. So I would text, whoever my foreman was, and yeah, you can go ahead, go down, and
they
whatever.
make you look bad. Yep.
And I mean, so men hated me, and it was prevailing wage, so it was, we are paying through the nose for labor, and so I mean, after months and months of this, I roll up on the job and I see him on a on a machine. He's fucking around doing whatever, and I was so angry. So I get out of my car and I'm beelining towards him and I'm yelling his name. Yeah, yeah, I'm not gonna say his name. And he gets off because he sees that, you know something's going down. And screaming at him, and this guy was like the size of an offensive lineman,
Mm,
huge, huge guy. And I'm just screaming, and I'm half his size. And he's like, and I'm like, I'm daring him to punch me in the face, and I'm glad he didn't, you
mm,
because he would have really hurt me. I
mm.
would still, I'd have problems today. But you know, that was really informative. And so I'm gonna just say, so that was actually late 2018. So a few years later, So we got the systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we, I essentially, with a little bit of help, I built a lot of that stuff myself. And used these terrible experience, used these huge
That's
fails to do it,
right.
and so because it was such a it was such
Painful.
an emotionally painful
Right.
experience, like I never wanted to experience again. And in early 22, one of our salespeople was bidding a job to a really good customer, and I'm going, and so we're going over it because his profitability numbers were iffy, at best. And so I'm going over the job and with him, and I'm like, so, what do we have on this? What do we have on this? And I'm looking at his numbers, and I'm like, it's like, what it was like, he had like 220 in it, and I'm like, this is a $500,000 job. So long story short, so I ended up putting him on a performance plan because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is crazy. You could have, and he
Bankrupt
would
the
have hit the
company.
numbers.
Yeah.
We would have absorbed it, but it would have been
Right.
really sucked. And so I had to go to the customer and tell her, I'm sorry. And this is an institution, right? So this
Mm-hmm.
is like, they're not messing around. They don't like this Mickey Mouse stuff.
Right.
And it was hard to get in with them. Long story short, I had to go basically eat crow. So I'm really sorry. We blew it on this. We're fixing it. And they hired us. It was a 420, something like that job. Anyway, but that came from, and I caught that, and we made great money on the job.
Right.
We made our margins, hit the numbers we need to hit. But you know, and then we did, obviously we had a lot of other jobs, and I did some big, multi-million dollar jobs, and had a lot of success. But like I learned from that one job with the lineman that was going to kill me, like I can't, discounting is not a sales tactic.
No.
And so the reason it worked is that, like you said, I followed a process, and it
Mm-hmm.
was just, lather, rinse, repeat, lather, rinse, repeat,
And
lather, rinse, repeat.
that again is what I hear over and over again. Because without one, you can't find the problems, and you're doomed to repeat the mistakes.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
many contractors, again, they consistently and repeatedly make the same mistakes and find themselves ironically in the same place. Right. So
Yeah.
one of the easier things of all, and again, I know it's going to go contrary to what most people believe because they believe it's a mystical, magical job, or that,
Right.
but it's data driven. It's the only place where you can be completely, other than your financials, but like
Right.
completely, quantitative.
Right.
So again,
Data meaning it's the numbers.
that's
Like the
right.
numbers don't lie; they are what they are. If
That's
you
right.
hit it, you hit. If you don't, you don't. And there's
You
no
got it. And
blaming.
data, again, in terms of finding problems, and like it's very black and white.
Right.
Again, as much as it, and you would think it would be the opposite for guys that are running sales teams out there that aren't being quantitative. You are setting yourself up for disaster. Number one,
Right.
think about what you have on your hands. You have persuaders that are going to tell you everything under the
Yeah.
sun, everything. Like you would not believe the stuff that I hear. And like honestly, it's their objection handles. So like I laugh when we're in sales meetings when I do jump in them because I often call them role plays. What are you going to tell me? Like,
Right.
because I'm just there with my objection handle. Nope, this is you. This is why. Here's your data. And like they hate it. Like there's no arguing. There's no fighting. Right.
Right.
And again, that's because I've learned, and I've learned through my own mistakes. I've learned by absorbing other people's mistakes. Like again, system and process make people better. Okay.
Right.
That's reality. You want a strong sales team. You want it strong. Don't rely on one person to come in and do all that for you. That's high leverage, by the way. For those that have been able to make it work, you've got extreme danger with that. And as an owner, you need to be a risk manager.
Right.
In that, if you allow somebody to completely run your sales, for example, okay, and you don't have the ability to track or be quantitative or repeat the process if the person leaves, you're in big trouble.
Right.
Right. And I've seen businesses literally go bankrupt because of this, actually recently. And again, it's very hard to, when you're, especially if you get to a high caliber position where, I mean, again, I can only think of the guys selling door to door. When your
Right.
lead salesperson leaves, I mean, even if you wanted to, it's tough to step in and get good at that, isn't it?
Right.
Right?
Right.
It takes time, it takes practice. And again, there are good quality people. And what I found that's really maybe supporting this is, imagine you get the process down. So regardless, if you can't sell a job, and this might again cause some people, and there's some exceptions to this,
Right.
but I'm of the belief that if your system can't sell a job without a salesperson, period, like you can't order take, all right, you got to really look at what you're doing.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
If it requires, like, a high level of sales, a high caliber salesperson, that's not scalable, right?
Right.
So because there's only so many A players, people that can play that role. I
Right.
mean, and they're finite, right? So at the end of the day, if you want to think about growing and expanding, and if you're that person, if you're the owner and only you can sell, again, not scalable.
Right.
That's you're setting yourself up once again for a
You just
big
have a
pain.
very well-paying job that you happen to
Right.
own the equity, underlying equity. Yeah.
And I see it repeatedly. Oh, no one could sell like me. Well, what do you think sales process allows you to do? It gets you out of the weeds. So again,
Right.
and don't misunderstand the whole sales thing. The whole sales process, I should say. Sales process actually is the handover from marketing. So when a marketing qualified lead comes in and
Yeah.
becomes sales qualified lead, that is now how we take somebody from, interested to closed,
Yeah.
right? So again, that's the human to human element of your, what I call yin and yang, right? You have your marketing, you have your sales together. Without one, the other one's much harder, right?
And
Like
yeah.
you could go out and heavy lift and knock doors and sell, right? Some people
Right.
have done it for forever. It's
Right.
possible.
Right.
Okay, but here's what I do know about that. That's pure hustle. And it's not, in large, it's
Hard to
difficult to scale.
sustain. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to sustain too. And God forbid something happens to you, or you take a vacation, or I mean,
Right.
it's
Exactly.
we've both seen that. It's
Mhm.
that's a nightmare.
It's prone to ups and downs, trends. It's prone to seasonality.
Right.
Again, but now add proper marketing, which incorporate it into your sales process. So marketing, I feel, again, I'm a big component of doing well with your marketing and
Right.
connecting your sales with your marketing. And
Yeah.
most guys miss that boat too. And I just see it over and over again. I kind of, it makes my head spin a little bit. So like, a good example of this is, the sales rep gets a lead in, right? Goes out and meets them, gets busy, and no one ever follows up. They don't have a
Right.
system in place to
Right.
follow up and find out what happened to that lead. So everybody's losing. Okay.
Right.
Another one is, speed the lead. They're handing them leads that are 5 days old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've already, like silly stuff, right? There's
Yeah.
a delay between when the sales rep actually gets the lead and when it comes in. And that delay, I mean, statistically, okay, your odds go down, statistically, all right, like 78% for every day that passes,
Yeah. That's
right?
right. Yeah.
So again, speed to lead is becoming more and more of, like a number we track and that we're like incredibly aware of, and I see it in not just this business but in other businesses and other contracting businesses. There's a direct correlation to how quickly you can move someone through, like when they become a sales qualified lead, to
Right.
getting in front of them. And usually, I mean, nowadays it's becoming, if you even have to get in front of them at all right, but just getting, responding, you know being being precise with, your customer journey, understanding what their wants and needs are, attracting the right people. Like, again, you can see how this now aligns with, what salesperson you have and, what they're saying, right?
Right.
So, again, I think we talked about this last week, but there is also a very strong connection between happy customers and good sales process,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
We can't dispute that. Like, if your sales rep is disconnected with what marketing has said and what production can produce, there's a big problem.
Yeah. I think too, Jay, and you talk about this a lot, and we did this and it worked. You know, sales process, I think that maybe I know some of my buddies, like, they glaze over if you say
Yeah,
sales process,
it's the
but it
boring
really
stuff.
comes down, yeah, because it's like, it's just like, I don't want to, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. But like, what we're really talking about here is, once a lead comes in, and we qualified that lead. And for us, we got super clear on, customers and work we did and would and would not do.
Mm-hmm.
And so had to, the number of times I had to look at something and go, I no, we're not doing this,
Right.
and take the time to, kick that lead or flip it to another contractor.
Yep.
Um,
Good move.
so the number of times I had to do that because my team got really good at this, it got, it was only a few, right, every few months. And so that was the first thing that we did that really worked, where
Mm-hmm.
and and this was, and I followed this in 22. It was a rough year. I mean, our sales were off 40%. I mean, it was a,
Mm-hmm.
a huge, huge decline in sales, in the recession that wasn't a recession, right?
Right.
And yet we still made money in 22. And the reason we did that is that I refused to chase jobs that I knew were going to end up being losers, because I
Right.
knew.
Mm-hmm.
And so we maintained that sales process. There was another job I had to rescue, and it went from like 70 something to 300,000, and they didn't hire us. It was for a big, for a big corporation that everybody knows. I'm not going to say who it was. And they didn't do the job, which is fine,
Yep.
because if I had done it for $70,000, I'd have got my teeth kicked in,
That's right.
right? So same salesperson, by the way.
Right.
So anyway, so we got really good at this, at qualifying and disqualifying and doing
Mm-hmm.
it with no emotion, right? And it didn't matter who it was,
No.
even if it was someone we knew. It was like, this isn't the right thing for us. And I would just
Well,
say no.
and high value clients, believe it or not, they don't want you to not make money on the
Right.
job,
Right.
right? Because
And they
to
don't.
them,
Right.
if you're out of business next year, what warranty do they hold?
Right.
What right? What relationship? Because and I think a lot of guys misunderstand this. Where I see a lot of like where we're discounting prices and that we're like thinking it's a price driven game, is when we don't have salesperson. We haven't seen it work for us, and we don't have confidence that we can sell at a high level, right?
Right.
So
Right.
again, a company can help in promoting this. So again, marketing from the very start to the end. Who are we getting in front? Who are we targeting? All those kind of things matter. And then if you have a disconnect between that and the sales rep, right? Like, a good example that I shared last week, I think, was, sending a 22-year-old kid to sell $100,000 roof to a retired couple is not a good idea. It's a poor life decision. You're not going to win a lot of times, and it doesn't matter how well he sells. Right now, I'm actually using a real life example where I had the number 3 top ranked door to door salesman in Canada. All right, and it sold millions of dollars door to door. All right, with a totally different product. And here, we wanted to see, give this a chance. Got absolutely slaughtered.
Right.
Not like, I mean, like 20 in a row, and then we had to shut it down
Oh.
because again, it's about your marketing, your avatar. If you're selling to somebody that's established, and is a more, again, we're selling to people that can afford $100,000, $150,000 roofs.
Right.
Believe me, their problems are not the same as somebody buying a $20,000 product. It's just not like they're
Right.
night and day, right? The client's not the same. And now what I've learned from that in our sales process is never send somebody that hasn't owned a home and that, couldn't afford to buy the roof themselves. Because if you do, that's your opportunity to make that impression with your client, and like they need that comfort and security. They're making a big high ticket purchase, and for a lot of them, it's really like our marketing is done well enough that it's not heavy lifting when you get to the sale. They've already been warmed up, nurtured. They know who we are. They know, but they need that that face to face contact. Our clientele, our avatar, because it's an older baby boomer type. Where we're still doing, in-house sales and stuff like that. But again, that, coming back to the 20-year-old, sales rep, now he's like 26, 27. I mean, he sells all of our virtual. And who do you think he's selling that to?
Right.
Right? He's selling it to millennials. He's selling it to the developers and builders and stuff. So, I mean, again, it's knowing who you're dealing with and having a sales process that picks up on those little things that become big things.
Right.
I just did a school class where I was explaining like what 2% improvement in one single area, let's say it's in your sales, what 2% means to your bottom line,
Right.
right? What 2% overall improvement in anything to a company at scale as well, we're ecstatic. Like that's hundreds of thousands of dollars for us,
Right.
right?
Right.
And it gets to the point where it's that difficult, right? Where you've plateaued, and now something's needs to change, something needs to improve, but you're fighting for inches. You're fighting
Well,
for centimeters.
and I think too, Jay, I don't want to go off on a bunny trail here, but one of the things that I one of the things that I learned also was that the like the your producers, like your top contributors, they want process.
Oh,
They
they
want
won't. The best ones I got, they wouldn't. They wouldn't even go to a company that didn't, because
right,
what's that mean to them? Bad commissions, bad
right,
pays. Like,
right.
again, a good way to look at it. This is, our sales rep thanked me after our call,
Okay.
apologized,
Okay.
right, and
Okay.
was really sorry that he wasn't getting commission, right? So like,
Sure was.
and for disappointing me, yeah. Like again, but in terms of having that in place, I mean, obviously it's not my first rodeo, and this has happened before with previous sales reps. But
Of course.
how often would an owner get caught up in not having, and again, and I say sales process, I mean the whole thing. Like if I didn't know my numbers, if I didn't know that he broke, well, you didn't submit the budget here, you didn't, here's where all the problems are, and this is exactly where it occurred, and it took me all about 2 minutes to look at it and just, yep,
Right.
that's what it is.
Right.
Where did the line get crossed? Where was the boundary broken? Okay, that you're wearing it.
Right. Right.
Like black and white, as simple as that, right? So again, if you want to have black and white conversations with high caliber people, they're going to respond by improving and getting better. If you're going to have black and white conversations, even with your C's and D's, all right, but if you leave gray area with a broken process, that's where again you're going to start to, you're going to have bigger problems.
Yeah.
And I think again, a lot of owners overly rely on sales,
Yeah.
and they don't really know what their numbers are. They don't know what closing ratios are.
Right.
They don't know, like, this person's performing better than the other. I've got a actually just had a brilliant example of it that came to my head. I'm going to share. So I work with a very large, successful roofing company,
Okay.
and I enjoy working with them. But they have a very old, old style, old school, system. Or when I
Yeah.
went there, there was zero um, um, data, zero,
Okay.
none. And
When you
they're
say
they're
zero data, what do you mean?
no, I mean like zero. Like they barely could use the CRM. Like I mean, they were still writing quotes, but doing 15 to 20 million dollars worth of work a year. Like
Okay.
not no joke.
Legitimate. That's legit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like their system had worked to the point that it broke, and that's why it was there. All right. So the problem is that they were getting new reps that they needed to hire. Some of their older reps were retiring.
Okay.
Again, they, like I said, they had a very, like, it was a paper driven process. It was one of the funnest projects I've worked on. So we went in, and again, as the kids were starting to take over this business,
Mm-hmm.
the big guy, we'll call it the sales rep, he's selling like $4 or $5 million a year to his regular, and it's a lot of repeat business.
That's
It's a
great.
commercial
Yeah.
business.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like when I came in there, this guy's God. Like I couldn't, like he literally insulted me multiple times, and I was like, dude, like I don't know who, like he was on a complete pedestal. Like this guy was like higher than the owner. The owner would like
Yeah.
apologize to him for me being rude, and
Yeah.
I had to stop them. I'm like, you know what? Let's start looking at some numbers. So this whole project, I'm still just finishing this thing up. I'm still involved. It's like 6 months later,
Right.
but one of the biggest hurdles I had to get over with them was looking at data versus what this guy did in the past and how much they contributed to the company. And guess what? Guess what? He got the most amount of leads and had the lowest closing ratio with the lowest profitability. Okay. And this man was being paid bonuses, being paid like all on feelings. So when I got in there and started implementing structure and implementing systems, okay, you can imagine I was enemy number one,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And it got to the point where I brought my third report to the owner, and he literally, like, I thought he was going to cry. And I could feel, like, I felt what he felt, and I've been there and I've done that and I've had that experience where he, like, it was like his world had shattered, but it was a good thing
Right.
because now when we start to pull accountability, guess who doesn't want to play? Who guess who's
Right.
not involving in and trying to undermine? And I told the owner, watch these moves. This is exactly what this man's going to do. First, he's going to
Right.
go and he's going to try and poison the team. He's going to try and say, that I'm the problem. He's going to make
Right.
a big deal because I'm a threat, right? I'm a threat. I'm like, it's going to come out in other places. He's going to start missing appointments, start, blaming the bad numbers on me. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
He's going to start to sabotage whatever we're trying to put in place,
Right.
like to a dime.
Right.
So fourth week in, again, with every week they have to submit their data. Now I have the actual numbers. I'm tracking every sale, every lead, everything, how many follow-ups. Like I can track, like, did he call on the system? Did he make the contacts? And again, just getting like doing none of it.
Right.
Right? So we start cutting back leads. That's your first
Right.
move. Okay. So I'm going to start moving them to the starving reps that haven't been getting treatment. And they're the guys that were actually playing along, the guys that would role play, the ones that were sharpening their skills, the guys that were dedicated to the numbers, the ones that were double checking numbers, the ones that were following the steps, getting approval for, custom products, like not just pricing off the top of their heads, right? Saying no. Like that was one of the hard things too, that this company does a whole bunch of things under the sun, in the commercial roofing space, right? That a lot of things, again, there is shingles and stuff in there that they shouldn't have been touching in the commercial space. Their primary is flat roofing and service.
Right.
And again, in terms of getting the system, by the fourth week, he was defeated. I mean, he was completely like off the pedestal. The owners were again talking about severance and how they would get rid of this guy,
Really?
and he'd been there 26 years,
Wow.
had done all these millions in sales, but when he's held accountable, all of a sudden the things begin to change.
Right.
And again, they were neglecting sales reps that were absolutely like phenomenal in front of clients, that were getting more closes, more yeses, more, and
Right.
they just out of pure, not having a process, not understanding numbers, not seeing the connection between what the reps are doing. Another example in that story was the owner's son was a sales rep,
Right. Oh
right?
boy.
Yeah.
Oh,
So and one of the problems there, no, it's actually not that bad. It's not that
okay.
bad. So the owner's son, the owner continues, never trained him, never did like anything like he did with the other reps. He actually got the foul end of the stick in terms of how it was expected that he knew this stuff. It was like,
Okay.
and I was, is the good thing that came out of it, because when we started implementing the system, and now the owner's son's about 36, 37, something like that.
Okay.
And, really eager, had great drive, but just in his dad's shadow, right? Like,
Right.
and
Right.
never had a chance to develop as a salesperson, and
Mhm.
was expected to use this old school sales system where it's high pressure, like it's, what I mean? It was just not, it didn't fit him.
Yeah.
And when we started, using the sales playbook that we implemented with them, and using the data, okay, he was the first one to go get, additional training outside of me. He got a sales coach. He got,
Yeah. Yeah.
he went all out, and he was determined to master it. And again, his sales went from, because he was being given all the slush leads. Like instead of giving the guys that were really dedicating good,
Right.
they're giving
Right.
this guy all the, basically, here's your platter, sir, and giving their sales, including their son, who lived off commission, by the way, giving him like all of the garbage things. We changed that up and created a fair system. And again, he ended up being the number one sales rep there in the first quarter. Like
Wow.
with all this going on, he goes
Yeah.
from, second, or I think he was third on the list. And there's only 4 reps there, right? So, and making peanuts, like barely scraping by, like, in his dad's company. And I'm just like, man, this guy's really like, he's taking a hammering. And then once we implemented those numbers, it changed everything. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, conversions start going through the roof. Like it was just like that. And then this, the older gentleman, thankfully, he consided and moved on, which was a huge thing for the team, the morale, the boost.
Right.
And again, and once I had that in place, And with the numbers, sales reps are coming and talking about their numbers. We're talking about how leads went. We're talking about, what they could do better, what they could improve, because people that want to succeed will succeed. But put them in a bad system where that's not the objective. All right. And put bad bosses, bad leaders, bad managers in front of them. You will never succeed with that. Right.
That's great. I mean, that's such a great example of you know the benefits of having just a lather, rinse, repeat. This is how
Yeah.
we like every time. And because I think some people equate, like they think, if I they think that somehow like customizing it every time,
No.
that's
Recipe
service,
for disaster.
or that makes us like unique. It doesn't make
Mm-mm.
you unique. It makes you more
Vulnerable.
like vulnerable. Yeah. And it makes you more like susceptible to somebody else that's going to come along, and they're going to do lather, rinse, repeat, and they're going to maybe
That's
put you out
right.
of business. Maybe they're going to take your jobs and make it really hard for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't make you unique and special. And by the way, customers don't want that.
No.
They want
Well,
to be
how
unique
would you know?
and special.
So again, if you're changing, and this is a point to be made here. So I see this a lot as well, is that company, and with our clients, we stop them all the time. We only work on one thing, okay, and there's a reason for it. All right.
Right.
Even with that, I went in, I focused on week one thing. We're gonna
Yeah.
forget all the other stuff. We're gonna just submit one end of week report. How many appointments were you given? How many leads did you get? How many
Right.
conversations you had? How
Right.
many follow-ups did you like? And I'm going to check that. That was all I did. And then I held them to it before I introduced anything else. Why? Because if they can't do that one thing and get it right, all right, I don't know if it's coming from left or if it's coming from right. But I think owners, what they do, and the biggest mistake they make, is trying to change too many things at once. Right?
Right.
Where they
Yeah.
come in and they're like, oh, it's got to be this, and I call it shiny object. Right? They're
Yeah.
throwing things at the wall,
One of
hoping
the
it
hardest
makes it
things.
better.
Yeah, it's one of the
And it
hardest
only
things.
makes it worse, because even if you did get the right combination, right? And a lot of it, if you break up your sales process into pieces, and there's about 6 pieces to it. All right. So, I mean, the qualification, and you focused on that one area and you got it to your
Right.
KPI, right?
Right.
Forget everything else. Just focus on that one. Get the numbers to line up, get it to match.
Right.
All right. Now you've got that. That's your control. All right.
Right.
What are we going to do next? Now we're going to look at our sales conversion, right? How many
Right.
times are we closing on site? How many follow-ups does it require? Like, what do those follow-ups look like? And now we're going to break that down to get that to a predictable rate. And it's amazing how much less work when you do get it, right? Because and I get the response all the time. I mean, I think if anyone's looking in the group, it's been there, right? How much easier it is when you can
Right.
just have and again,
Easy.
like simple
Yeah.
skills, complicated fails. Like at the end of the day, you're not trying to make things harder, but a lot of owners make it hard on themselves by moving all the pieces around and not tracking what the results are.
Right.
If you're trying to get to a constant, and believe me, everybody that's listening to this wants one thing. They want a boring business that pays them a lot of money every month. You don't want excitement. You want a boring, easy business where there's not. You want to be so bored in your
Right.
business and so
Right.
fucking rich from it
Right.
that you know what you can entertain yourself all day, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
it really comes down to that, and you don't get that until you sit down and you make it like it's grind, right? But we're
Yeah.
grinding and fixing something. We're then looking at the next thing and grinding and fixing that, and
Right.
before long it's so obvious to you, and you cut out so much unnecessariness, right? So much waste. And again, a good example of this is figuring out the general age of your client and ask them, hey, would
Right.
you prefer a Zoom, a Zoom call where we can discuss your project, or would you like me to come out to your home?
Right.
Right? We're seeing it right now about 50-50, right? But imagine if I just made it, man, I'm going to go out to everyone's house.
Right. Right.
I can do 10 Zoom calls in a day. And also, if I'm asking that question, it's telling me what the person that's accepting that appreciates. And my
Right.
sales process is different. Our
Right.
closing's different. Our appointments are faster.
Right.
Okay. The person that wants the Zoom call, they're busy. Why'd they accept that? Like, again, they're probably millennial and stuff. They're technology savvy. You're not like the sales whole process is totally different. You're not doing a
Right.
hard
No,
emotional or persuade.
right.
No, it's totally different, right? It's to the
No,
point. It's quick. It's making sure you're hitting the important points of like the what's in it for me.
what
Um, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, to your point, I've done a lot of I don't think of I still don't think I'm a salesperson, but I've done a
Hmm.
lot of selling, and I was selling almost $3 million a year in very high profit work,
Yep.
and none of it was high pressure.
Right.
Not one time ever, right?
It's not
I don't
necessary though.
not
Like,
a closer, I wasn't slick. I just
yeah.
process,
Well,
boring process.
right. And again, a sales process and matching that to marketing, you don't need A players. You could get by with C's and D's.
Right.
All
Right.
right. Like
Right.
at the end of the day, and I mean that's the reality. That's how companies grow and scale. Like again, if you're dependent on one person that's going to make or break your business, you're doomed. All right.
Right.
Because
Right.
or if you're overly stuck on one type of work, right? That's not
Right.
profitable and you have to
Right.
shift and you
Right.
don't have the people in or the process in place to make that shift. Again, I try to build my business as much as I can, and I mean it's still got its flaws. Nothing's ever perfect, but
Of
it's got to
course.
be self-healing, right?
Right.
When do you have to get involved, right? When is it that you have to be like,
Right.
if your process is letting you down, all right, the signs and the symptoms come out in how much you're involved,
Right.
right?
That's right.
That's how you know. And again, this is the benefit of going through and getting these pieces right. The other benefit to it is when there is a problem, something changes or there's a shift in the market, it's going to show up and you're going to be able to trace it right back to where the problem
Right.
is, right? So
Right.
again, I'll give you a very good example of this. Seeing the difference in millennials, buying major purchases over the last 2 to 3 years has been
Right.
a data tracking process for us. We're right
Right.
on it. We know year by year it's growing about 11%,
Okay. Interesting.
right?
Huh.
So but if I didn't have a good sales process to know, and it comes from, well, why is our overall sales ratios coming down? Because again, now I have to produce more leads. I have to, like, what is
Right.
behind that? Now
Right.
I rule out competition that's in the market. We have our SWOT analysis. We have all of those things going on to determine, like, okay, so we need to offer our services more often. And you know how we fixed it? Would you like a Zoom call? Or would you like us to come out and meet you?
It's good. Yeah.
Right there. Like, how would have, and again, you got to wonder how many people just keep banging their head against the wall when we know that the problem is, all right, the problem was right there in front of us to see if we had something that was allowing us to have the discussion, come up with an assumption, and then test it against a system that has got controls and proof
Right.
that this works, right?
Right.
We know it's not, like, if we can get in front of a client, like,
Yeah. Hey,
right?
dude. You to your credit, you were the first one to turn me on to that. I mean,
Yeah,
I was having all these Zoom calls, with whatever vendors and on the calls we were on and stuff, and using them all the time, but I wasn't using them with customers of the restoration business.
right.
And I was like, man, I'm like, will people do that? I'll be honest, when I first heard you talking about it, this is back in like early
Hmm.
2021, I was like, I thought, that's his customer.
Yeah,
And then I started doing it.
yep.
And you know what? People want to do it.
Some do.
And
Yep.
yeah, well, right, not everybody, but like it it was people that like were big phone people and that were
Hmm.
like I'm 47 that were like kind of like around my age or your age, they were all about it.
Yeah, because
And
it's
it
faster.
saved
It's more
me.
convenient.
Well, yeah, and we were covering. I mean, the business was covering 12,000 square miles, Jay. So, like,
Yeah.
I mean, my first 3 years, was I was just a road warrior.
Hmm.
Driving hundreds of miles every single day. So that was also part of the magic. That I mean, getting that leverage and not having to drive and go to every single place to try to close a contract. You know, I got that time back. It was huge.
Right. Well, and I mean, the next thing that we're going to see that we're using that has made an absolute game changer is the ability to use AI in between the gaps of your
Yeah.
salespeople. Okay,
Right.
I can't,
Right.
like, again, like, the numbers don't lie. How we're using it for prospecting now, how we're using it for follow up to meet,
Yeah.
actually have real meaningful engagement. Because here's the thing, you know when we started out, it was the mailers. Like we would mail; those were great, but they lost their effect after a certain point, right? When email became more popular, when those things. So we started emailing them. They work great. Right up till about 2020ish, we started to see kind of a big shift in people had seen them. Everybody started doing it, right? Everybody was kind of on top of that. Now, I mean, again, did they perform? Did they do? Yeah, absolutely. But now we've seen an even more impressive tool that we use in our sales process. By the way, Contractor AI, this is what we do, is finding those engagement points where you can make meaningful contact with someone in a personalized way. Okay, so I'm not talking like there's still work to be done in knowing your client journey, but I'll give you a good example of how we're using it. When a client reaches out to us, speed to lead, boom, 24/7, they can reach out to us, book a call. When they have questions about the roof, about certain things, we're already engaged with them, and the bot will pick up on what needs to be sent. So it'll send out a case study, it'll send out a PDF of projects we've done. Like it's very impressive. Now, when they're going through the decision making, or like a rep has met with them, we've given them a price. Okay, our follow up process, the bot's able to see, if they open the email, if they engaged with it, if they open the quote, bam, immediately they could open the quote at 3 a.m. All right, bam. Do you have any questions that I can answer? I'm an AI bot and I'm here to help you through the process. You know how many jobs we're saving right now just by being there? Like just speed and convenience, baby. Like that's, and again, if you don't see that coming and you don't start to incorporate that in your sales process, I'm coming to eat your lunch. And I mean, seriously, me and everybody that does, right? So, beware. And again, it's scary for me to think, if I didn't have these things in my tool belt right now, how I would just get annihilated, right? Like again, I feel like I sincerely feel bad, and it's a matter of time. So like again, right now it's quiet and there's not a lot, but you give it a little while and everybody's going to be using it, right? Just like again, there as long as your business, and I like to think that we really push the envelope when trying to be ahead of these things and make these improvements. And it's because it's not that I'm ripping down a whole structure and trying to throw pieces of it. Oh, I like this. That's a shiny object. No, it's because I've done the work. I know the steps. The way you make someone feel doesn't change in a sale. All right. What does change is how you make what that mechanism is to make them feel that way, right? So again, people are starting to prefer more the DM conversations, the immediate attention, the immediate resolution to their problems. Guys that are taking 2 days to get back to customers, you're toast. You miss a follow up, like they've already gone with someone else. Like it's that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. One of the things I've observed too with contractor AI clients is that like the big distinction between them and their competition is like they're paying for the pain up front, meaning like you're going to get pain no matter what.
Right.
So you can condition and get pain, and you choose the pain, or you wait until that tidal wave of your competition does it, and that comes crashing down on you.
Correct.
And then the pain is
there's no way back.
Worse,
that's right.
And it's also, it usually doesn't happen at a good time. And like that's what was happening in the business when I came in and took it over, was like they weren't choosing their pain, they were just getting pummeled by the competition.
And that's right. I call it freeze on spot, right? Where guys just freeze and stick to what they think will work because it's worked before in the past, even though that they're taking all this damage and all this pain. And we see it all the time. Like the amount of growth that we've seen in clients that have leaned into it has been like, again, I have clients that have done better than me, and I'm like, wow, like they really like, and being uncomfortable the whole time, like just, all right, 100%. It is like, again, one of the scariest things that I had the experience early on with AI, and I know that's a scary word and I can set clients off right away, was having a conversation with it where I was like, now I see the future, and like, holy shit. Like just thinking about the impact and stuff, but taking it down a notch and going, since that initial, oh my god, I just seen Terminator, it's come down to this is a cool tool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's really mild down to like, okay, this isn't actually going to replace anybody. This isn't going to replace the person. You know why? Because now I'm going to have more volume of projects, more volume. You know what it's going to replace though? You know what we're not going to see anymore? All the contractors that didn't use AI,
Right.
right? It'll
Right.
be guys like me. So a company using AI will replace you who's not. Period. It's not going to be AI that replaces you. It's going to be the company using
The
it.
human using it. That's right.
It's the people behind it. It's the people that are pushing it. And again, if I can and again, it has not replaced one person on my team, and I don't think it will. All right, but what it has done is it's made it more efficient. It's made the scorecard clearer. It's made our
Right.
customer service better. And guess what? We can charge more. But bottom line,
It's
we
no
can
different.
get there faster. We
Jay.
know when we've lost jobs faster, and
It's
it's
no
lowered our overhead.
it's no different than like if you went out and decided we're not using power tools anymore.
Right. Exactly.
We're just going to use hand tools, right?
Exactly.
Because that's because we're artisans,
Right.
and we're going to do the same quality of work with hand tools.
Hmm.
How long
Cool.
would you stay in business?
Not long. Well, and I mean, again, if we want to use a funny reference to this, do you know that back in the day, we'll say it in the 1800s or whatever, all of these streets were lit with kerosene. There used to be a
Right.
dude that walk around and light the kerosene lamps and everything else, and it was big time fire hazard and everything else.
Huge
And
fire hazard. Huge.
then they came out, yeah, like look at all the fires. Then they came out with electricity. And guess what? People lost their friggin' minds. Nobody was using it. It was, it had all these negative, health effects. Just go look at, like, there was
Yeah.
hysteria
Oh,
where
yeah.
people were revolting and burning
Yeah.
places down, and like nobody wanted it. And now look at where we are today. Like, would
Right.
anyone use kerosene? Like, so like AI is going to be the same thing. It's
Right.
the same thing. But guys, like anybody that's listening, and especially when it comes to sales process, I think a lot of owners struggle with getting their people to change. And I'll put it to you like this: the energy it took for me to change that company around. Okay, I told you I'm still there today. It's 6 months I've been on that project. 6 months of like literally. Now, if I had just come in and fired everybody and started fresh, I'd have been out of there in 2 months. All right, I
Right.
would have hired new staff, trained them to the system.
Right.
But that's what I think a lot of owners are up against, is that change, that refusal, that
Yeah.
resistance, and like again, the relationships, all those things, all the human side of it. So the quick win here in all of this and what I'm explaining is it actually goes to support that. Like, hear me out. On
Okay.
with let's say we brought in an AI appointment setter, an
Right.
AI just to follow up with all the leads,
Just to follow up.
right? That's
Right.
it. Just follow up with the leads. Okay. Well, your sales will, number one, 15 to 20% minimum increase. Minimum. Just that one thing.
It's
Right?
legit. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's use it for customer service. What if your customer could just text you anytime and they got a response? What do you think that's going to do for not having more problems down the line? Right? How about your time? Like if you're a single operator and you're starting your business, you're starting to run it, and like the biggest problem you have at first is wearing all the hats. And I don't know about you, but I was never good at answering my phone. I didn't like it. I still not, right? So like me being a secretary, Jay, that really wasn't like that was not a good fit for me, you know,
Secretary. That's
right? I
awesome.
couldn't get my dress short enough. So it was just wasn't
Uh,
for me, right?
yeah.
So at the end of the day, like let's use it in logical terms. How can it help me? How can it make me better? And for the guys that are out there, somebody messages calls your phone, and all of a sudden they get a text back, "Hey, sorry I missed your call. What can I do for you?" And you can be booked into a calendar.
Yeah.
You've just saved a customer. How many times do you go to call them back? You were on the job and they've already gone with someone else. Like you're
Yeah.
losing opportunities. You're losing
Well,
you're losing,
I think I think to your point, it's. I mean, I'm just going to go back. I mean, for the capabilities that we have with this just right now. I mean, just off the top of my head right now. I mean, it's a part-time admin that I would have had to hire. Right.
Mhm,
It's a $40,000 to $50,000 a year estimator that I would have had to pay to be
mhm,
part time. So there's about half of that salary, and then probably another 10 to 15 grand in minimum in like labor from other people, from
And
other
admin, yep.
right,
Well, and here's the fun part about it. Like I love tracking ROI. It's one of my favorite
right,
pastimes, we'll call it,
right, right,
passions of mine. Um, you start off number one being ROI'd almost day one, right? So
right.
like for the cost of this
That's an
technology,
excellent point. Yeah, it's really
one appointment is all it takes to find an ROI,
right,
right? Like one appointment to me in my books, again, minimum requirement $50. Like no matter which way you want to slice it, right? So
right,
like even thinking about prospecting. So like if you're not generating a lot of leads, and I get that a lot, okay. So what if our intention is to be organic and we're going to go do a post that gets attention and we have 15 to 20 people to respond to?
right,
You're working, right? Are you who's going to answer that? Are you doing a good job of it? Right? Can we actually see where the problem is and correct it? So like again, think about that admin that you've never checked up on their calls. I bet you if I did an audit right now, I would find a whole bunch of flaws in why you're not converting leads. And I see it in my own business, how many times that we have to continuously upgrade and train and, go back and correct because people are
right,
people, right?
right,
You know, give them, it's just like water. Water always finds the easiest way out, right?
right.
So at the end of the day, this is not a problem that you'll have to incur. And it's such a critical thing. So like most of the sales process is really boring administrative. I'd say
Mhm.
90% of it seriously is. It's getting back, it's writing emails, it's, responding,
Yeah,
kiss, like all these things, like just following up.
no,
When
yeah,
you remove that, and now
right,
all of a sudden, out of nowhere, okay, you don't really need that sales. Like if you do a good enough job at this, a lot of people nowadays, and more going into the future, are going to be willing to do business with you on an Amazon like experience. Because
right.
listen, even grandma's using Amazon, right? So if you could provide that and you're able to support that with less people
Right,
than your nearest competitor, well, you're more profitable. If you're more profitable, you're more healthier. If you're
right,
more healthier, you can afford to go on an offensive versus defensive,
right.
right? If like it just goes on and on. So like we talked about the 2% earlier and how important it was and how much it meant to a company like mine. What if I told you I got 30 or 40% out of this? What do you think that means? I feel bad for my
Huge,
competitor.
huge numbers. Yeah.
Like I literally have like I do have a special place in my heart for the guys trying to like come up in my area. I do. And I feel bad for them because they have no chance. Like they
Right
just
before
they,
you
like
go.
well, and again, I try to keep them motivated by sending them all the leads we don't want.
Right,
And we
right.
do help out and we give back. Like all the D clients and C's, they go to our nearest competitors and they thank us for us. I had
Sure.
I had four of my competitors at our Christmas party. I'm a nice guy.
Not
Now,
surprised.
again, like at the end of the day, when it all sorts out, they got what they want. They're learning and grooving, right? I'm not, and it's better to keep them.
Yeah,
I've helped people and I've helped subcontractors that work for me start their own businesses.
sure.
Again, my theory on this whole thing is only competition lives at the bottom, right? Like that's the only
Right,
place there's competition. The rest
right,
of the people are collaborating. The guys at the top are collaborating. They're working things out because, and again, when this whole AI thing has started to come in, I know it's only a matter of time before everybody's got it. I know it's only a matter of time before it's not a new thing. Everyone's figured it out, but that time's not yet. It's not now.
right.
So if you're thinking about getting into it and you want to improve your sales process, if I improved mine 40%, being as tight and being, as dedicated to it as I have been for all these years, like I know what the ROI has been for me. And I know that's, a good reason why contractor AI exists today. All right. And I'm giving you the clue. Like, this didn't start out of nothing, right? So at the end of the day, you want to take my advice here and really think about where we can start to incorporate this because it means less people. It means better service. It means better
Yeah.
connection with your clients. It means more sales. More like there's very little downside to all the ups.
So we've got a lot of ways that, so, there's a lot of ways that, you know, guys and ladies can, connect and get solutions and help on this. Jay, what do you want to point people towards for the person that's out there, that's got a home services or they're a trades contractor and they're listening or they're watching us and they're like, okay, so how can you help me?
Yeah. So I'd like you to either be in our Facebook group. Great place to
Okay.
start. Just put your hand up. We'll book you into an appointment. If you're not, our website, the Contractor AI. Keep it nice and simple. Jump on there. You can book a call with us. You can respond to this. I mean, if you're watching this live, YouTube, anywhere, just put your hand up and we'll get you booked into a call. We make it easy. One thing I'll say, I get a lot of questions about this, so I'll be very clear. If you're talking to me directly, okay, so some people that are in our Facebook group, I want you to know that we use only humans there. Okay, so I only use humans because I don't want to break a trust bond
Right.
with anybody, and that people still are like not trusting AI. I
Right.
don't use AI on my own account. All right, you can't either. By the way, just so you know, like it's not like you can't actually use it in a Facebook group on your personal account.
Right.
I wouldn't even if I could.
Right.
Now, the only AI we have, which I've been very vocal about, is when you reach out to Contractor AI directly. Okay, her name is Zena. She's very good.
Yeah.
Say
Very good.
hi. All right.
Yeah.
She's very pleasant and nice.
Right.
She is 100% an AI. Okay. So if you
Right.
are
But
right. So again, depending on, you can ask her, just Contractor AI or our Facebook page. But again, if you're in our group and you're listening to this, I don't use AI in my own personal account. From time
right.
to time, I have someone that helps me out. So when I'm on these kind of calls and stuff, I still get back to everybody very quickly
Right.
and
Of course.
respond.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, we're here to help. And we are human and we are still, AI is great. It does not replace humans.
Right.
Okay.
It's a supplement. It's
It's
something
a
that,
supplement. It's
yeah.
That's right. And there's a time and place for it, right? So again, for speed and convenience purposes, with a low variable like booking an appointment or something like that, AI is fine. If you're
Yeah.
trying to use it to manipulate people into buying things, you're going to have a lot harder problem on your hands, and it's
Right.
not advisable.
Right.
It's not there yet, and
Right.
nor do I hope it ever gets there, to be honest with you. But it probably will.
Probably will. Right.
Right.
Okay. So we have a lot, there's a lot of ways, because we've talked about the AI tools that we have, which are totally dope. We've also got a lot of stuff on process and so on. But, so if you're curious, you can just join the group, but you do have to be a contractor.
Hmm.
Okay. So we don't let marketers in and people that are trying to sell contractors. It is just contractors. So
That's it.
if you're watching this and you're trying to get in and you're going to be slick, you're not going to get in. Because I
Yeah.
mean, a few squeeze through, but then they get,
They get booted. Yeah.
yeah, they boot it out pretty quick. So if you want to dip your toe and you're just curious what this whole thing is about, it is a very cool community of like contractors that are doing the same thing you're doing. They're trying to build their business. They want to make more money, and some want to build their business to sell. Some want to build a business to scale, but folks that want to grow and want like a healthier business. Um, if you're listening, you're like, ah, this sounds pretty good. How can I talk to you? Click the link that's in the description or in the caption, and you can book a call right from the link. So thanks for hanging out with us for a minute here on a Friday, where the show is every Friday, 3 o'clock. Jay is doing free trainings every Thursday at 3 o'clock. And like I said, if you just want to connect, you want to see what this thing's about, you can join the group, or of course, book a call with Jay or one of the team, and we'll be thrilled to help you out and have a conversation. So thanks for hanging out with us at Contractors Corner, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye.